check. Hey, check, check. Mic check. Hey, hey, ha, hey. Okay.
Okay, once again, good morning, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, una vez más, buenos días. I'm being really honest. If you guys want to come to the front, it's even better. If you guys stay there, that's okay. Una vez más, gracias. Está siendo muy sincero. Si usted gusta participar, inicia enfrente, no pasa nada, no sucede nada. Es la táctica del estudiante y participante que siempre tomamos el asiento de atrás, ¿verdad? Siempre. I remember that. Yendo a la escuela, donde sea que fuéramos. Saludos a Ezequiel Ordóñez, nuestro enlace en todo México, la República de México. Aquí se encuentran entre nosotros. Pero yo recuerdo que siempre nos íbamos hacia atrás. Y todas las preguntas eran al final. So with this said, today we want for you guys to help me welcome FDA with us today. We have Emilio Escobar with his team here located at Pharr International Bridge. And also with us, we have Mike, Brian, why Mike? Okay, it's Brian from Grub Market. And I'm not gonna do no introductions. Help me, round of applause for you guys here today. Round of applause for Grub Market that they sponsor our finger foods for this event today. And no, nothing that has to do with FDA whatsoever. But please, Brian, come up front and please, let's give him a round of applause once again. Thank you guys. Welcome, bienvenidos con ustedes. Bienvenidos el día de hoy. I want for you guys to feel in-house, relax, feel comfortable. I know we're supposed to be getting some more people walk in person, and there's also some already connected online in line. Please share your link if you have a team, your office, or someone that you think this is supposed to be like participate or listen to this. Please send it over. We'll give you a couple of minutes. But with this said today, Brian habla muy bien español, okay? So no se dejen engañar. No diga nada del gringo, así dijo el gringo. Dije, what? Pero él sí habla muy bien español. Una vez más, fuerte el aplauso a cada uno de ustedes. Please give yourself a round of applause and FDA. Brian here.
Buenos dias. Thank you so much for inviting us to participate. We are Grub Market, and we are a newer company that's out there. We are originally headquartered in California. Don't hate us. But we also have locations all over the United States and Canada, including here in the Valley. So we're excited to be here. The FDA is going to have their presentation, and then we'll be able to talk about some practical skills, just specifically dealing with food and how there might be able to be a program or other solutions out there to help track information that's necessary for our industry. So thank you very much for coming today. Again, thank you for the invitation and the Pharr Bridge for being here, and we'll talk later.
Thank you, Brian. With Brian also, Andrew White back there. Andrew, please stand up and say hello. He's part of the team, so welcome once again. And just let's make it fast, with us, you all know Emilio Escobar. Emilio, please. You guys want to turn your microphone on. This is Emilio. Emilio is going to introduce the FDA team, and once again, it's all your time. So please, real quickly, you guys need to use the restroom straight ahead to the back. To the right, okay? Los baños, los WC están al fondo a la derecha. Tenemos unas salidas de emergencia a mi espalda, emergency exits back here, another emergency exit, the entrance, of course. Anything, so please, all questions, we're gonna hold them toward the end. And once again, a round of applause for Emilio Escobar and the FDA team.
Thank you, Freddie. Good morning. Thank you for being here. We're glad to be here. We've been wanting to do this for a while. Somewhat of a broker's refresher training. Just some of the things, we're going to cover a lot of the things that we tend to see on a daily basis. As we guys, obviously, we're the ones reviewing the entry submissions that you guys submit to us. But before I do, let me introduce to you all, for those who may not know. First of all, my name is Emilio Escobar. I am the supervisor for the team located here in the Rio Grande Valley. My office is in Pharr, but we cover all the ports of entry from Roma to Brownsville. So that includes Roma, Rio Grande City, obviously Hidalgo, Pharr, Progreso, and then all the way to Brownsville, and it includes Los Indios. So all those 5 ports of entry are covered by my team. Today I have with me Officer Juliana Ramos, Officer Michael Morgan, and Officer Adrian De La Rosa. So if you've had any business dealings with them, you probably know their name that way as well. So the topics we're going to cover today are broker-importer relationships, why they're important, and we'll go over some key things there. We're gonna do a review on product code building. Sometimes some of the product codes we see are not always accurate, so we're gonna do a little refresher on that. We're gonna do we have it up there as proper manufacturing grower and other entry, you'll see in the slides, and other entry information that is submitted. FSCP representative considerations, that's going to be more of, I've been asked to cover that. That's if a client of yours asks you to be their FSCP representative or qualified individual. I'm going to go over some of the stuff. It's not an FSCP presentation. It's more about should you be your client's QI, and I'll go over some of the things that you may want to consider if you're considering that. Dunn's number requirements. This is a hot topic right now because we just turned off the ability to use U and K as a unknown if you don't know your client's Dunn's number, or at least those that are importing foods. So we're going to go over that. Affirmations of compliance. A variety of products require certain affirmations of compliance to be submitted in your entry, so we're going to do a review of that as well. And then import alerts also, we're going to do a review of the public side and how you can actually go into the FDA site and see what's on import alert. Could be helpful if you have clients saying, hey, can I bring this stuff in? I would highly recommend you look it up first and make sure it's not on import alert. So with that, we'll go into the first. Oh, if you could hold questions to the end, just in the interest of time, because we do have a lot of information to cover, and then we'll grab all the questions at the end. Is this mic on too, the podium? No? Okay, open. We can do this. Okay. So transmitting. So I'm going to go over a little bit about the differences between the broker responsibilities and the importer responsibilities. Obviously, many of you have been in the broker filer business for a long time, and you know all the information that obviously gets transmitted: country of origin, manufacturer, grower, shipper, product code, product description, affirmations, and then quantity and value. These are the things that we look for. If most of you probably have been through a filer evaluation by FDA, these are the things that we're covering during that evaluation to make sure that you transmitted those items correctly electronically through the system. Right? Transmit proper entry documentation. Be sure to communicate your ABI messages to your importer. I know that's kind of important, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that. You're the first ones that are going to get that hold, right? That FDA documents required, or the FDA hold, samples, etc. Be sure you communicate that with your client. Advise importers when their product is on hold and should not be distributed. So this is something I highly recommend doing in writing, because many times if it went down the road or it went to destination, the importer is telling us, oh, well, my broker didn't tell me. So I do recommend if you're advising a client that their product was held for FDA exam, that you get that in right, or you at least send them, and you show me an email saying, hey, here it is, where I sent them, notification, and then we know that, the onus falls on the importer. Responsibility. So you know, obviously they have a responsibility to give you guys all the proper information as well, right? They're the ones owning the product when it arrives, purchasing it from the foreign supplier. So they need to give you all that information, and it should be true and correct. Information about the products, the entities involved, they're responsible obviously for holding the product until they get an FDA release. Importers get the fines for non-compliance. They're essentially ultimately responsible if they fail to hold, or their product is finds out to be violative for some kind of pesticides or micro. Ultimately, the onus falls on the importer. They're the ones that are going to get the fines and penalties from CBP, from us through CBP. And then they're also responsible for, if it gets going to be destroyed or exported due to refusal, then they're also the responsible party for arranging that with us to witness. I do know that lots of brokers, facilitate that, and that's great, because I think that works better than trying to deal with the importer directly. But ultimately, they're the responsible party for exporting and destroying. The importance of good relations with FDA and with importers or with clients. Obviously, we rely on you guys to explain the applicable federal regulations to FDA. I mean, to your clients, not just with us. Obviously, you have to be very knowledgeable about CBP regulations as well. We rely on you guys to give a basic overview of what our requirements are to import FDA regulated products, whether that be foods or medical devices or other goods that we regulate. And we would want you to have a good knowledge of what we regulate. So it's food, drugs, cosmetics. That's where the FD&C comes in the FD&C Act. Medical devices, radiation emitting devices, tobacco products. A lot of people miss the radiation devices. That can be anything. Basically, what I tell people, anything with a laser, we actually regulate it. So that includes CD-ROMs. It has an internal laser, believe it or not, we regulate it. That kind of stuff. So you as the broker are acting on the behalf of the importer when you communicate with us. You're essentially the middleman or the liaison between us and your client, and vice versa, right? If you've got a message from your importer, that's important to relate to us. Our expectations of the broker is obviously know the FDA requirements, explain them to your clients, respect and understand the importance of our regulations. We are a public health agency, and I think it's important to explain that to your clients. I understand that your clients are in a, whether it be the produce business or packaged foods or some other medical device, it is a business, and they want their products and available for distribution. But ultimately, we are a public health agency, and we all eat, right? Everybody eats. Some of us more than others, but there's nobody exempt from having to get substance and consume foods. That's our biggest program that FDA covers is this health and safety of food. So just remember that you can always remind them, hey, this is in the interest of public health, and that's the reason for our regulations. Submit truthful and correct information for entries. Be knowledgeable about prior notice. All foods require prior notice, so that's something you may have to explain to your clients if they're not familiar with that. The Bioterrorism Act of 2002 pretty much put that into effect. It's been around a long time, so I know all of you are familiar with that. A certain amount of time before it arrives has to be transmitted to FDA, and that's not something that my team reviews. That's reviewed in headquarters before it even arrives to US. And they're reviewing the entities involved with that. That's what prior notice is. Question your clients if something doesn't seem right. If if they're telling you, I think there's another slide on this. If they're telling you that no, don't put that manufacturer, put this one, I would question that, or something like that. I don't know if they're not getting correct shipping information, that kind of stuff. I think it's prudent of you guys to question your client, because we're going to question it, you know. So definitely do that. Communication with the importer. Remind your clients that all entries are subject to FDA examination and or sample collection. Yes, our systems are set up to where a lot of it gets preceded by our automated system, but we can always resend that entry if we have a special assignment or we have a reason to collect a sample or examine. Just remind them it's amazing how many times, oh, well, we've never been examined before. Like, well, today's your day. You know, it's that kind of deal. Or we're always get releases, and I get it, but remind them every entry is always subject to examination. Explain import alerts. For those who may not know, once a product gets found to be violative for a certain problem, whether it be micro or pesticides or what have you, it'll go on an import alert, what we call an import alert, and that manufacturer of that product and that product will be, we'll get an alert in our system saying, hey, this was found to be positive for salmonella. Just an example. And now all across the country, that same manufacturer and product will hit on our system, and they have to get off the import alert before they can import that product again. And there's ways to do that. You have a big obligation. You have a tough job. I will admit that. And just my history with I've been in the agency 20 years with doing fodder evaluations. I mean, there's a lot that you have to learn. I've never taken the broker's license test, but from what I hear, it's very, very hard. And you know, there's a lot for you guys to know, and I appreciate that. And I do think you have an obligation to your importer, because you guys are the ones that are educated in our regulations to relay that to your importer. You know, we would want you to be able to communicate the importance of submitting correct information. We will investigate substitution cases, failure to hold cases. That's something to explain to them as well. For those who may not know what a substitution is, it's entry comes in, we collect a sample. If it's found positive for pesticides, let's say it's an entry of, I don't know, let's say cilantro, and they sold half of it. You know, they didn't hold it. We ask them, hey, we need to look at this because we need to destroy it. And then they buy other cilantro to fill what they sold. So that's what we call a substitution case. They substituted other product, not the original product, for what came in. That's something that obviously that can be. We investigated. We found out what the particulars of it, and I believe there is a CFR. If it was intentional, you know, there could be a lot of fines and penalties with that. Failure to hold, it is, they just sold it all. They didn't care about the FDA hold, and they don't have any product to present. So we will, that's when we're asking the questions, or did your broker tell you it was on hold? Or did you just decide to go down the road? What happened? Who dropped the ball? That's tends to what we look for on that. And that's why I say get it in writing, because if they tell us my broker didn't tell me, and you say, yeah, I did, here it is, then we know we can go after the importer. Affirmations of stress. Again, stress the importance of our regulations, you know, to your clients. Affirmations of compliance for a variety of products are required. Medical devices require, you know, registration. Pharmaceuticals or drugs require drug listing numbers and registrations. And then canned products, FCE, SID numbers. Radiation products require 2877 form. So again, there's a lot to learn, for those in the broker business. And we're going to go over this later in the presentation as well. Like I said, if you could hold, in the interest of time, let's hold questions to the end so we can just get through all our material, and then we'll go from there. Next, we're going to have Officer Ramos come up and talk about product code review.
Hi, good morning. Again, my name is Juliana Ramos. I am going to be covering a little product code building refresher. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, but I feel it's always good to have a little refresher, and we'll be going through some demos together. But first, let's begin with the most basic information about FDA product codes. So what is an FDA product code? Well, it defines a specific product, and it's comprised of a 7-character alphanumeric code. Our next slide. So our product code is made up of 5 components: our industry code, our class code, subclass, our process indicator code, and our group code. And when approaching our product codes, I like to think of each one of these components as a sort of puzzle piece. And when these components come together, you accurately describe whichever product code you're attempting to transmit to FDA. So in our first component, our industry code, this is going to be your the broadest category, right? The most general of the codes. And it's always going to be defined by a number, 1. And when you begin to think about your industry code, you want to describe the product in the most general terms, right? It's the broadest category. So you have to decide, well, are we transmitting a seafood product, or is it a vegetable, or is it a sort of like a dental medical device? Very general terms. Moving on to our class code, this is going to be defined by letter, and the class code is more specific to the industry. So let's just say you're bringing in a seafood product. You would classify it, the class code. You could decide if it's a crustacean, or maybe you're bringing in some sort of smoked fish, right? So it's a little more specific to the industry. And then next, we have our subclass code. And for a subclass code, you want to think about what the product is making contact with, or what is this product packaged in, right? So let's just say you want to import a shipment of celery, it's in bulk, and you're bringing it in wooden crates, or it's retail packaged celery, and it's coming in those like individual plastic sleeves that you see at the grocery store. Your subclass code is going to define what it's being packaged in, either the wooden crate, the wood, or the plastic sleeve, plastic. Next, we have our process identification code. And this is a part of the code that will describe either a process, storage, or dosage form. And it's important to note that if it's a medical device, it will not have this PIC. It will simply remain just hyphenated. It won't have a letter or number associated with it. Also, moving on to our product and group code, we discussed that the industry code is the broadest category, right? It's the most general. Well, with our group code, this is going to be the most specific part of our product code. In our next slide. Okay, so that didn't work. Okay. Okay, so you might need help building these codes. And a really helpful thing you can do is visit our webpage at fda.gov and just do a general search, product codes, and it will generate 3 helpful tools for you. One is a product code builder tutorial, and that will have different lessons. Depending on which commodity you're researching, you can delve into those lessons. The second is our product code builder, which we will be using today in our demonstrations. And the third is the product code building application programming interface. That's a mouthful. And this deals with software and software that you use to query and verify different product codes. So before we begin building our product codes, it's important for us to gather as much information as we can about the products we're going to transmit. And you can do so by getting with your importers, your clients, and asking them to provide labels or photos of the product. You can also verify the type of product it is, how it's being processed, and always determine the intended use of the product. And another very important part of product code building is our invoicing, right? It's always important to match up the product that's declared on the invoice, the description, and make sure that the product code is accurate. And on the screen, I know it's it's a small screenshot. I'm not sure if you can read it from there, but I've highlighted one of the products that was offered for import. And this invoice is in Spanish. Side note, when submitting entry documentation to FDA, we require that the invoicing be in English. In this case, the importer transmitted zanahoria, or carrots, and they're in 50-pound sacks. So at this time, you receive your invoice, you see that they're carrots in these bulk sacks, right? But you might not be sure about what the packaging is. And this is the time you get with the importer and just verify, like, hey, are they cloth sacks? Are they plastic sacks? And in the following slide, I included actual photos of the inspection I conducted on this carrot entry. And as we can see, they are fresh carrots in bulk plastic sacks. They're 50-pound sacks. So now that we've determined exactly what product we're working with, right, we'll go into our product code building demo. Okay, how many of y'all are familiar with the product code builder? Just show of hands. Okay, good. Okay, so this is one of those helpful tools I mentioned earlier that you go to our website, just run a quick query on product codes. It'll pull it up for you. And we can start, we're working with what? Fresh carrots, right? In those plastic sacks. And we're going to search under industry. And industry, we discussed, is the broadest category, the most general. So what are carrots? They're vegetables, right? So Let's go to our V's. Thank you. Okay, is that better? Okay, so we'll start with our vegetables, and that will be under industry code 25. There's also an industry code 24 for vegetables, but just to save us time, if you were to go into the 24, you would soon find out you would not find carrots. You'd find more like leafy vegetables and stuff like that. So let's select next now that we have our industry code determined, and we're moving on to our class code, right? This one's going to be more specific to the industry. So what type of vegetable is a carrot? It's a root, right? A root vegetable. So let's go to our drop down box. And as you can see, there are so many different types of vegetables under the class, right? Let's go to our carrots. And as you can see, there are a lot of carrot selections here. You have carrot microgreens, you have mixed products, carrot juice. In this case, the most appropriate class code for it would be J, the root and tuber vegetable for carrot. When you select J, you'll see that under the group code on the far right, it already generated your 01, which defines carrot, your most specific part of the code. Select next. And okay, so we have 3 out of our 5 puzzle pieces together. We just need 2 more. And under our subclass, remember we have to ask ourselves for subclass, what is the product being packaged in? What's it held in? What's it making contact with? In this case, our carrots are packaged in plastic bags, right? And the subclass code for that is defined by G. And the process indicator code. So we have to think, have these carrots, I don't know, were they canned and retorted? No, they're coming in whole, fresh, and they were refrigerated. So the most appropriate PIC for this part of the code would be to select our raw, fresh, refrigerated, which is C for our PIC section. And click next, and the product code will tell you these are you've arrived at your final results, and that is the most accurate product code for fresh carrots in bulk plastic sacks. And just to go over just one more, we deal with a lot of fresh produce here in Pharr, lots of fruits, veggies on the daily. So I'm going to do a fruit example now. And we are going to attempt to build a product code for retail package this time, not bulk. Retail packaged whole frozen strawberries. Oh, we do? Okay. Okay, so I'm being told we have to go on break now. A quick little break, bathroom break, snacks, and we'll be back. We'll reconvene 5 minutes. In 5 minutes. Thank you. resume our second example, and we were discussing building a product code now for, they were frozen strawberries in retail packaging. Usually when I see these frozen strawberries in the grocery store, they're sometimes in paper cartons, but for the most part, they're in plastic bags. So we'll assume these frozen strawberries are whole and in plastic bags, 12-ounce bags, let's say. So frozen strawberries. What is a strawberry? It's a fruit. We'll start with our industry code, which is not up. Thank you, Yahida. Okay, so we have our product code builder back. Sorry about that. And we will search under the industry code for fruit. So if we go under fruit, if you can see the screen, you'll notice there are 3 different industry codes for fruit. And just to save us time, what I usually do when I'm verifying my product codes at the office is an easier option is to go to option 3 and just search for your product name. So we'll just type in strawberry or strawberries and select next. And that's an even faster way to arrive at your industry code. It right away found strawberries under 20. You didn't have to go under the other 2. And next, we've selected our industry code. Now we're moving on to our class code. And of course, it's more specific to the industry. We are dealing with a berry. But as you see, you have different strawberry options. You have berry puree, dried or paste. You have juices and concentrates. In this case, we are building a product code for whole frozen strawberries. So the most appropriate class code would be A14. And the 14 was generated under the group code and is specific to strawberries. Next, we move on to our subclass. And we remember that subclass, when we're dealing with it, we always want to know what the product is packaged in, what is making contact with the product we're transmitting. In this case, we decided these strawberries are packaged in plastic bags again. And in the drop-down box, you see our different subclass codes for glass, for metal, paper. We will select G for plastic and move on to our process indicator code next. Now, were these strawberries processed? Were they cooked or heat treated? Or in this case, no, they're whole and frozen, right? So let's look for the PIC that best fits that description. And we have one under PIC C for raw, or no, not C, pardon me. It's D as in Delta for raw, fresh, frozen, natural strawberries. We select D, hit next, and the product code builder stops there and gives us our final results for our retail packaged whole frozen strawberries. And there we can go on and keep building different product codes in different industries. But for now, I'm going to use those 2. And thank you very much for your time. And now Michael Morgan is going to discuss our next topic, which includes proper manufacturing and grower identification.
The steps you just went over on the demo, we did print out those steps, like click here, click there, and those are in the back. Is that correct, Haida? There's copies of those slides? All right, thanks.
Good morning. So what I'll be covering today would be proper manufacturing, grower identification, and other entry information. Basically, what I want to stress out mostly in this section will be who is the manufacturer and why is it so important? I'm going to state the two missions that here at FDA we focus on. Number one priority is public health. That is our number one priority. So that's going to basically set the tone on everything. Why is the manufacturer so important? What's the origin? It's the origin that could be linked to outbreaks, tracebacks, the origin of goods. So the information is very important that it's correct and accurate. Because in turn, this will cause second part, which would be delays. And delays is when we have to confirm documentation, request documentation, request clarification, because our number one priority is always going to be public health. So if we don't know where the origin is, we're going to delay it until we get that information. So it's, I know it's a lot of burden on you guys, but that will make it a lot smoother and faster if this manufacturing information is properly processed. So I went ahead and put the who is a grower, and the reason why I did that is because sometimes what we see out, there's a miscommunication on who the grower is. And this is basically off the CFR, Code of Federal Regulation. The grower is a person who engages in growing, harvesting, or collecting crops, raising animals, so fish, seafood, or both. But it's basically what is the origin of what we're transmitting. The accuracy in this is very important, and I'm going to go back to public health as well as delays, right? What is not the manufacturer and the grower, and we see this a lot in a lot of transmissions. Packing house. A packing house will not replace the manufacturer or grower unless it's grown on site and it's operated by the same entity. There's some packing houses which would be the manufacturer as well as a packing house. In that case, it would be. But other terms that are used, and I placed it on there just because of, but we see that, is consolidator, distributor, shipper. These will not replace a manufacturer. This is not the origin of the food, correct? So this is a question more for you guys. What can you guys do to expedite the entry process? I know that's part of your business, trying to get it flowing, try to avoid delays, having a smooth transition. And going back, it's going to be correct identification. And I went ahead and put an example of how and why English translation is very important. Basically, yerba buena, correct? So if you translate that, it just by reading it, you're looking at good herb, which in reality, it's spearmint. So you see how it kind of would throw you off, but that's the importance of having the English correct translation of what you're transmitting, because this will go to a lab somewhere in Washington or New York or somewhere. They have never heard that word, yerba buena. So having that translation is going to have the correct communication across the board, from us to the lab, compliance officers, so forth. Another example would be like nopal. So nopal, people somewhere else are not going to know what nopal is. It's cactus, right? So some example of the importance of translating it in English and corresponding to what you guys are submitting or the importer. Other requirements would be like label requirements that require the English translation with a principal display panel, weight, ounces, manufacturer, distributor, It must match what you guys submit, because if not, then there'll be delays, right? It might seem a little redundant, but I put it on there because a lot of the delays are caused by something simple as that. And when I go into delays and we see going back to public health and we can identify the manufacturer or the product, that's when we'll be on the phone and we're going to ask for clarification, or we're going to ask for an additional invoice. We're going to ask, so that's at that moment now we're going to slow down the process. Basically, some of the other things that we run into is going to be obviously the value of goods. I put possible a clear picture of for the entry reviewer, because that would be the first person that's going to be reviewing, right? So these documents, if they ask for documents or whatever you submit, you want to have it as clear as you can for them, so that makes their job a lot easier to go ahead and make an admissible decision. So giving it the clear picture, the most clear picture that you can, is going to expedite that process. Give you an example also of the quantity in the product breakdown. For example, one case, 30 bottles, 16 fluid ounces per bottle. So that would give an accurate breakdown of what's being presented. As well as also, like, say there's a sample, we're going to go out there and get a sample. We want to know, okay, there's 16 fluid ounces per bottle. So that gives us an idea, and we'll be better prepared for that sample. Whereas if we're not prepared, and we have to go, and that's going to cause more delays. These are some examples of what not to transmit. And going back to what not to transmit, just because there's a miscommunication and what we see being transmitted. One word that we see a lot is comercializadora. Now, you could use that if it's in between. For example, if the comercializadora is being used, that's fine, but you have to present the manufacturer. So the comercializadora by itself will not present the origin of goods. So the comercializadora is, and if the communication is there, and that's something you may want to get with them, if the communication is that they may submit something from the comercializadora, but it doesn't have the manufacturer on that document, but that's something you have to request, because then we're going to request it from you. So then that's going to create that delay again. So if the comercializadora is going to be involved, that's fine, but make sure that they do also clear out point who's the manufacturer. Distribuidora as well. If you're going to use that, make sure to use it with the manufacturer traceback. So we want to use whatever we have to. Sorry about that. Exportadora, also, same thing. And it's going to be redundant, but it's because at the end of the day, a public health is going to depend on the origin, which is going to be the manufacturer. Conciliadora, those are some of the terms that we've seen in some of the entries. And this is just an example, generic example of an invoice that kind of would see. Some things you will see is one line with juice for the whole line. All the flavors, all the sizes, juice. You know, so at that moment, we're going to look at it and we're going to say, well, what kind of juice? Where is this juice coming from? Is it natural? You know, so just because what's going to happen, we're going to call you guys and ask for a breakdown, which will lead to delays, right? Chips, also very vague description. Cans, candy, you know, some stuff that is what you want to avoid. Try to get as specific as you can to create that picture for the entry reviewers to have a good decision. Give another example. This is more of a one of those documents that's done by exportadoras or importaciones, where you can have, and actually this is not a really good example, but we'll see stuff where it'll say Reynosa, Tamaulipas, and we'll have like papayas and cilantro. So we know for a fact that wasn't grown in Reynosa, right? So you see, so you want to have that trace back always to the manufacturer. So if you're gonna submit a form like this, asking for that information, so that makes our job a lot easier, and it's gonna expedite that process and avoid delays. That's all I had. The next section will be by Supervisor Escobar.
All right, FSDP representative considerations. Again, I was asked to cover this because I've been told that sometimes maybe your clients will ask you, hey, can you be my FSDP representative, my FSDP qualified individual? It's a short 3 slides, but I'll try to expand on a lot of. Again, this is not FSDP training, but I will dig a little bit into it. So basically, it is part of the FSMA Act, so the Food Safety Modernization Act, which came about in 2015. FSDP is a portion of that, and that came into effect in 2017. So FSDP stands for the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. And in a nutshell, it's essentially saying that we're requiring the importers who import foods to ensure that their foreign suppliers are producing those foods to the same level of public health protection and preventive controls that we would want, that we expect our domestic growers to do. So essentially, that second bullet there is straight out of the rule. Again, it's for produce, for importers who are importing food to verify that their foreign suppliers are producing food in a manner to the same level of health that we would expect here, same level of public health, and ensure that their supplier's food is not adulterated or misbranded with respect to allergen labeling. So essentially, they have to evaluate their foreign suppliers. They need to evaluate what kind of processes they have in place. How are they covering the known hazards or the hazards that are likely to occur with that particular food? So you can imagine that a variety of foods have a variety of hazards. The importer has to get trained and educated on food hazards, on the hazards that are likely to occur with pretty much any food. There are a few exemptions, and we'll get into that later, but for the most part, all foods have a certain hazards or likely to occur hazards with foods. With produce, its biological hazards are known, it's automatic, but the produce safety rule covers that. Basically, an importer would have to ensure that their grower is following produce safety rule to control their biological hazards. And then the other hazards that they would identify is pesticides, because that's their chemical hazards. If I can backtrack, so they have for FSDP, they have to identify biological hazards, chemical hazards, and process or physical hazards. Those are the 3 categories that they should identify with their foods that they import. So for produce, it's biological hazards, which is handled by produce safety. Chemical hazards would be pesticides. Physical hazards typically are in the harvesting process, rocks, sticks, usually some type of foreign material due to the processing. So that's an example, just a quick overview of what FSDP is. Should I be my client's qualifying individual? It's a good question. I can tell you that, so the definition up there is defined, well, first of all, the regulation requires that a qualified individual develops the FSDP, the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. So whether the importer does it, goes out and gets trained themselves and they do it, or they hire somebody to do it, or they hire a third party to do it, right? It also goes on to say it's a qualified individual is a person who has the education, training, or experience or combination necessary to perform the activities required. And that last bullet is a qualified individual may be, but not as required, is not required to be an employee of the importer. They can rely on non-employees, such as a consultant or third-party auditor, government employee, including foreign supplier, foreign government employee, maybe qualified individual. Essentially, the qualified individual has to have the training, the background. So if you're asking yourself, should I be my client's QI? If you have background in the food industry, you know, that would consider experience. I would still highly recommend you get the formal training, and here in the last slide, I'll show you where you can get that. It's a lot to learn. You would have to learn a lot about food safety, food hazards, food production, depending on the types of commodities you're considering being a QI for. Essentially, you know, a QI is required, again, by FSAP, a qualified individual, whether it be the owner of the company or whether it be somebody like yourself or some consultant comes in and develops their FSAP for them. It is required that a qualified individual. And then during the inspection, we're gonna ask, okay, what are your qualifications that make you a QI? And typically, we're given a certificate of training from FSPCA there at the bottom, or some type of other certification. We've also had people say, well, I've been in the business, I've been growing produce for 40 years. I go to the farms, I know everything about. Like we're going to ask these questions, okay, what qualifies you to know the hazards or to know the processes involved for this particular food? You know, it's pretty easy to pick up on, yeah, this person knows his stuff or her stuff about how this product is made. If they can rattle off, yeah, there's a cook step, it's this many degrees for this long, and if that doesn't happen, that's a critical control point. It's pretty easy to pick up versus somebody is like, well, I don't know, I took the training. And the training is very good, and I'll get into that in a minute, but if you are considering, it is a great responsibility. Obtain the education and training needed to do so. I mean, obviously, it's a business decision that you would have to make as a broker to do that kind of service, but it is a lot. You do have to develop, and I don't know if I had it in my previous slide, you would need to develop an FSAP for each food and supplier of that particular import. All importers have to, for each food and supplier. They can group them. An example would be if the same product, let's say broccoli from 3 different suppliers, and they all harvest kind of the same, have the same harvesting processes, well, they could probably group all 3 of those suppliers and broccoli for these 3 suppliers. That's one FSAP, but they would have to do it for all commodities that they import, all food commodities. If you're considered, learn the food industry, learn the manufacturing, growing, processing, get familiar with Fsap, which stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. Those are what points in the process are critical for the grower or manufacturer to control. You know, obviously a cooked product, the cooking step is very, very important. The Food Safety Preventive Controls Alliance is a broad-based public private alliance. It's online. This is the entity that's providing training, not just to us, but to the public as well. We have our own internal training as well for our officers to get trained in the regulation. But that's the website there. When we do an FSAP inspection, we give this information to the importer and say, here's where you can go get the training. And it's online, and most of it, especially with the current situation with the pandemic, the majority of the classes are online. You can take them online, and it's a certification. It's a quick crash course in Fsap and food Fsap. It's the best way I could describe it, and it teaches you process controls, that sort of thing with foods. So again, if it's something you're considering, I would highly recommend you learn this stuff. If you don't already, you know, have a good knowledge base of it. And we still got quite a few information to get through, so we're gonna move it along. And back to Officer Ramos about the DUNS number.
Hi again. So I'm going to be covering Dunn's number requirements. And just to let you all know, as of this past Sunday, July 24th, the entity identification code UNK, which stands for unknown, it's no longer accepted by a CBP. So per FSVP requirements, importers are now required to ensure a valid Dunn's number is transmitted with food products. And although the use of UNK was allowed, it was only meant to be used on a temporary basis. So I'm sure many of you have been informed by now that CBP will begin rejecting food entry lines that are transmitted with UNK. If you're not currently transmitting a food entry line with Dunn's, it will be rejected. And as a friendly reminder, please keep in mind that FSVP regulation requires that importers of food transmit accurate information relating to name, email, and the unique facility identifier. And for FDA, the acceptable UFI is that Dunn's number. Also, it's not listed as a requirement, but we encourage that you provide the most reliable and detailed contact information, like phone numbers. That really helps us out on helps you and FDA out in tracking down our FSVP importers. It just helps expedite the entire inspection process. And just to go over some helpful information regarding food importers' Dunn's numbers. Remember that the Dunn's number is location specific, and it corresponds to the food importer's US location. Also keep in mind, if multiple US locations exist, as well as multiple Dunn's numbers, ensure that you are transmitting the Dunn's number where the FSVP importer maintains and stores their FSVP records. That's the one you are to transmit. So how do you go about obtaining a Dunn's number? Well, you can visit Dun and Bradstreet. It's a portal. If you go to www.importregistration.dnb.com, it's listed up on the slide. You can go into that portal, register, and obtain your Dunn's. And in this slide, I've included just a little screenshot for you of what the portal looks like. And on one of those links, you can access the registration section and begin your registration process. And one thing I always stress to my FSVP importers is that obtaining a Dunn's is free of charge, and it really is an easy process. So should you require assistance obtaining a Dunn's, know that the DMB portal does have a customer service number. It's that 844 number provided there for you. And if you require further assistance or have questions regarding Dunn's number and FSVP requirements, always feel free to contact our Division of Import Operations at the email listed on that email slide. FDA Imports Inquiry at fda.hhs.gov. Now, if you've recently encountered issues with rejected entry lines due to submitting UNK under a food entry line, we also have an FDA ACE support email. You can feel free to reach out to that help desk if you've had issues with entry line rejections. And that's all I have now for Dunn's number requirements. We'll be moving on to affirmations of compliance, and that topic will be covered by CSOs Michael Morgan and Adrian de la Rosa. Thank you.
The affirmations of compliance is to expedite the FDA's review product compliance. Basically, these are going to be registrations that are required in certain products. The filer can submit additional information at the time of entry, registration, listings, approval numbers, and this can be used as the affirmation of compliance codes. The AAC information affirms the product meets the requirements specific to the product being imported. Submitting the wrong AFC can delay initial screening. So it's very important to get these requirements, listings that are going to be submitted. The qualifiers provide product and manufacturer specific information, and FDA uses this information to verify the product is within compliance. Some affirmations require product manufacturer registration number that's unique to the facility, an approval number that's specific to the product. For example, if they're doing an acid can registration, then that would be linked all the way back to the manufacturer and the process that was used on that process. And these are some of the example of, which would be the food canning establishment number, which is FCE, SID, scheduled process identification number, FSX, foreign supply verification program under FSVP exemption. Now that's very important not to use that on anything that is under FSVP. So very important not to use the FSX on products that are subject to FSVP, because that will flag up as it's not being submitted correctly. RNE, food and research and evaluation, IFE, import for export. When a food under FDA oversight subject to FSVP regulation is offered an entry into the United States, CBP's automated commercial environment, the ACE system will require the filer to transmit either the FSVP import information or the appropriate affirmation of compliance code. So these codes, the entity of the role FSVP indicated in the entry line is subject to the FSVP regulation, or one of the two affirmations of compliance codes, FSX, RNE, indicate the import is exempt from the FSVP regulation at the time of entry. So that's going back to that. If it is something that is subject to FSVP, make sure that you do not use the FSX. One of these three codes, FSX, FSVP, FSX, or RNE, are not transmitted for an imported food under FDA oversight, and the ACE system will reject the entire line. For line entries that use the entry code role FSV, the following information must be provided: the FSVP importer's name, email, and Dunn's number. If the food entry line is exempt from the requirements of the FSVP regulation, or FDA has provided guidance that the AG intends to exercise enforcement discretion to the food offered for the entry with respect to the FSVP regulation, the filer should transmit the AFC code FSX instead of the entry code FSV. The next part will be covered by CSO De La Rosa on drugs.
Good morning. Just to elaborate further on common affirmations of compliance for drugs, some of you all do transmit those types of entries to us. Just keep in mind, some of those affirmations include REG, which is a drug registration number, DA, which is a new drug application number, or abbreviated new drug application number, or therapeutic biologic application number. It also includes a DLS, which is a drug listing number, and also an IND, which is investigational new drug application number. So importers should be providing those common affirmations to you upon transmitting the entry, and it helps expedite the process an entry review on our end. One second. There we go. Sorry about that. In continuation, we do see a lot of medical devices coming through the port. Medical devices do require affirmations of compliance. Some of them include DEV, which is Device Foreign Manufacturer Registration Number, a DFE, which is Device Foreign Exporter Registration Number, an LST, which is Device Listing Number, Pre-Market Number, which is Device Pre-Market Number, and IFE, Import for Export. So in order to help expedite those types of entries on entry review, it's helpful for the entry reviewer to have those accurately transmitted to FDA upon arrival. That way we can expeditiously make an admissibility decision on those types of entries. So in continuation, the responsible parties such as the manufacturer or importer should be able to indicate when these affirmations should be used and supply the qualifier when required. So if you are importing these types of products, to ensure that the information is accurate, and if FDA does require documents and request those, ensure that the proper affirmations for each of those types of products are accurate and complete. That way, in turn, it helps expedite the review process for each of those types of entries. Here are a couple links of affirmations of compliance. It's available at the fda.gov website. They're both, the first one is the AOC Quick Reference Guide, with lists the common affirmations of compliance. And the next would be the AOC reference list for ACE. Those are very helpful if you have any questions, and it kind of breaks it down per column and row as to when to use such information to FDA. Okay, next we're gonna go ahead and cover import alerts. By a show of hands, who has navigated through the fda.gov website to search if a product is on import alert? Okay, a few of you have. As my fellow colleagues have stated, and Supervisor Mr. Escobar, it's important to reiterate to your client the importance of products that are being imported into the United States, right? As CSO Morgan stated, our #1 mission is public health, and these import alerts are in place to do such so and to protect the consumers in the United States, right? So a couple of topics that we're gonna go over are the purpose of an import alert, interpreting an import alert, the types of import alerts, the red, yellow, and green lists, examples of current import alerts, removal from an import alert, just briefly kind of provide that information and where to find it. And we'll do a quick demonstration onto looking up an import alert on the public FDA website if you have specific product that may be subject to a detention without physical examination. So first and foremost, the purpose of an import alert, as I mentioned, is to protect public health, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all consumers of foods, and the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act gives authority to FDA to automatically detain without physical examination imported products such as foods, pharmaceutical drugs, medical devices, cosmetics, and tobacco products, biologics, and radiating emitting devices. And the second would be to prevent potentially violative products from being distributed into the United States, as I mentioned. And import alerts also place the responsibility on the importer to ensure that the products are compliant with FDA laws and regulations. So this is where it comes into play, where if you're filing entries and you know that this product may be subject to an import alert, to educate the importer, to provide that knowledge so they are aware that in the future, hey, you know what, this product may not cannot be imported because it's subject to an import alert. So it's important to pass along that information. Just quickly, just interpreting the import alert, which you will commonly see on the import alert section. You'll have your import alert number, the published date, the type, the name, the reason for alert, the guidance, product description, the charge, the countries, and the list of firms. So that's common on each of the import alerts that you'll see. Some of the various types of import alerts you may encounter, some of you all may be aware, are country or area-wide, manufacturer or product-specific based. Shipper may be placed on an import alert, a country or a worldwide alert. And we'll kind of go through those briefly in the tutorial, just giving you examples of each of those. So we get questions sometimes in calls to the office, is this product, can this product be imported? And we have no issue answering those questions, but we like to provide that knowledge to you and walk you through how to look it up. Because in turn, you'll provide that information to the importer, and more knowledge is better moving forward with the entries to make it more expeditious and a quicker admissibility decision. So here you have your red list, right? So you have firms, products, and/or countries that are subject to detention without physical examination. As I stated earlier, the FD&C Act gives FDA authority to detain those types of products or firms offered for import due to a previous violation or something's wrong with the product that could potentially be a matter of public health. So that's the red list. Then you have your green list, which are firms, products, and/or countries that have met criteria for exemption from detention without physical examination. So this type of import alert will state a green list as opposed to a red list, where a list of firms and the company products that have met the criteria for importation into the United States. Hence, it's been added to the green list, and they're exempt. However, at any time, FDA has the authority to continue surveillance on the product to ensure that it's in compliance. So you may see a firm that is on import alert, but it's on the green list, and we may collect a sample for salmonella. And you see that commonly with papaya entries, right? So that gives us authority to examine any shipment at any which time. We also have a yellow list, which is a firm's products and/or countries subject to intensified surveillance, or firms that have met GMP issues, but further field examinations are warranted. So this is, as stated there, it's a list of firms that are allowed to be imported. However, the products are subject to increased surveillance and sampling as needed to ensure that it is compliant. Here are just some common examples of import alerts that some of you all may be familiar with. You have an import alert there for food products due to salmonella, which is a high health hazard. You have an import alert for fresh cilantro. As you know, there is one currently right now. It's a seasonal import alert from the state of Puebla. So in this case, you would have an import alert that has a green list of a firm that is in the state of Puebla that it is allowed to have its product imported to the United States. Here you have import alert 9905, which is detention without physical examination, raw agricultural products for pesticides. And here you have 21-17, which is the papaya import alert, which has the green list, as I stated earlier, with list of firms that have met the exemption criteria for that. You also have an import alert subject to foreign suppliers. It's human and animal foods imported from foreign suppliers by importers who are not in compliance with the requirements of FSVP. So you may want to take a look at that as well. And also we have a countrywide DWPE, which is all dried peppers from Mexico. And that also has a green list as well. Here's some brief information for removal from alert. FDA must have evidence that the conditions that caused the violation have been resolved. And the guidance section of the import alert, as I'll show you here later on, within the import alert itself may provide specific requirements and contact information. if you want to add a firm properly to a green list or remove it from red list, there are some steps required. Any requests or removal from the red list or addition to a green list can be submitted via petition to the FDA's Division of Import Operations. And there you'll have the link to the import alerts removal, and it's some detailed information there on the steps to do that if you're not familiar with it. And just to expand further on those, if you are aware that a product is subject to a detention without physical examination and is on a green list, for example, the papayas, right? It helps the entry reviewer if those documents are submitted to us, expeditiously in order to expedite the review process on that end and get the shipment on its way. The same thing for cilantro, since there is a seasonal import alert right now. We do all submit documents requests often, but you should already know that we are going to request documents, so have those uploaded, have all the information provided to us via those documents, invoices. Sometimes the carta porte helps a lot as far as the origin of the product, so we are aware of where it's coming from. So all that helps us in our mission to, one, protect public health, and also expedite those entry review processes. Now I'll go to the FDA public website here and to show you all a little bit of how to search for an import alert. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So here you have the FDA public website at www.fda.gov, and you search import alerts. It'll bring you to this page here. And here it has a lot of good information, commonly asked questions, purpose of an import alert, things that I just went over, and kind of breaks it down further detail if you want to look at it. So for example, if you want to bring in some cilantro, right? And you're not sure if it's on import alert. You can type in cilantro here and hit enter. And here will pop up various import alerts that may be attached to the product, right? And here we have fresh cilantro. The import alert that I stated a little bit earlier, which is 24-23, which is a DWPE of fresh cilantro from the state of Puebla, Mexico. And if you click here, it'll break it down for you as far as the import alert, right? We'll have the published date. And like I said, this is a seasonal import alert from April 1st to August 30th. Here it'll give a breakdown as to why this import alert is in place, right? And it'll go into further detail as to the areas of concern for the product itself, the reason for the alert, and it breaks it down there in detail. Here you have guidance as it relates to the import alert. I'll have the section of the act as to the analytical results. If you continue further down, provides more information, and it's pretty detailed here. So for the essence of time, you all can go ahead and navigate back at the office. Here you have the firms that if you want to request removal or addition from DWP or inclusion to the green list of the alert, here it says should forward the supporting information to the address listed right here in this area or via email. And any questions, as I stated earlier, can be addressed at this phone number and contact information. So all that is very helpful. Here you have the product description and the problem, which would be a cyclospora and in sanitary conditions. So that's why this import alert is in place. Here's the charge pursuant to the FD&C Act, or the charges, I should say. And here you have the list of firms and their products that have met the criteria for exclusion from detention without physical examination, or DWPE, under this import alert, AKA the green list, what I stated earlier. So the only firm that can import cilantro from the state of Puebla would be the firm that's listed right here, correct? So any other firm that is in Puebla during the seasonal import alert would be subject to detention without physical examination and refusal because it's not on the green list. I'll do one more just for the essence of time. So that's the green list. Let's see. We'll keep it with cilantro again here. There is also an import alert for pesticides, right? Many of you all are aware when we conduct our follow-ups and our sample collections. So here, if you clicked on import alert 9905, you'll see that some cilantro and some growers are indicated here on the pesticide import alert. Again, it'll break it down for the reason for the alert, the guidance, such as removal from this red list. Before we went through the green list and there was only one firm. Here is the red list, which are these firms are not exempt and are subject to DWPE and refusal because they're on the red list. Here's the charge, as stated earlier. And here you have a list of firms and the subsequent, the countries of origin, where they're from. So here you have the country of Argentina, garbanzo beans, and this is the firm that is on the red list. So anybody trying to import from this type of firm from this country would be subject to detention without physical examination. So there, it's a list of all the firms here, and you can do a quick Control F if I know it's a lot, but it can break it down per product. And if you have a question is, hey, I don't know if this grower is subject to a pesticide import alert. In the past, it was. We're not too sure. I mean, we can help you look that up, but we'd rather give you the information to provide to you and also provide to the importer as well. So in turn, going over what my colleagues had stated earlier with product codes and the communication, all that ties in to import alerts as well. So for instance, if you're bringing in lemons and the invoice says lemons from grower ABC, but the product code you're using is Persian limes, and that grower for Persian limes is on import alert, we can see that there might be a discrepancy, and in turn, it will affect delays in the shipment. Maybe it's a clerical error or whatnot, but it's important that all the information is accurate that you're receiving from the importer, and the information that is transmitted to FDA is accurate, especially if it is subject to import alert. So just remember, if it is subject to an import alert or green list, have those documents ready for us to review. And if we need to examine it, then we will. So one more quick thing I want to touch on was if it is subject to a refusal, reach out to us immediately, especially if it's a perishable product. As soon as you receive the 4647, the CPP form, and it's something that was refused, reach out to us. I'm the coordinator for the FDA and also my colleague here, Michael Morgan, but any one of us in our office can assist you with making that appointment to destroy or export the product. So just keep that in mind. All right, thank you.
Put that last slide. With the info. There you go. All right, that concludes our formal part of FDA, but I did fail to introduce one more person on my team, Ms. Yajaira Bueno. She's my admin assistant. I'm sorry about that. She's a big help. Her number's up there. I highly recommend you write her number down. Her extension is 105 because she always knows where I'm at and she can get a hold of me. And she can find out if who's the entry reviewer, et cetera. So please feel free this is all our information of my officers that we have here today. If you have any public affairs questions or of that sort, many of you know Silvia Gaitan. She's our public affairs specialist out of Dallas. She can usually answer those types of questions. If you have clients that say, hey, what's the regulations for XYZ product, go to her first. She usually has a ton of links that she can send to you or to the client directly. With that, we'll take a few questions. I know we got a little bit of time to answer a few questions. Were there any specific questions for us? Yes. It should be if that's the way the import alert is written. But we don't have a whole lot of yellow lists, do we? Yeah.
So there is one that's, I believe it's 2201. It's a import alert for cantaloupes from Mexico, and that has a green list and I believe a yellow list as well for firms that are subject to increased surveillance, but it also has a green list of firms that are permitted and excluded from detention without physical examination. So yeah, so that's import alert 2201.
JD, can you please use the microphone, please? Because then it's live, so we won't be able to get to.
You mentioned on the FSVP that the qualified individual could be a foreign government employee, but initially it had been mentioned that the FSVP had to be based in the United States.
Yeah, the QI can be a foreign government employee.
But don't you
Just a
review
qualified
the
individual.
FSVP with a QI?
Say that again?
Don't you review the FSVP with a QI?
Not necessarily. The QI, typically, yes, the QI it's part of the inspection. They can join by phone, but ultimately the importer has to sign off on everything that the QI did. We would still probably ask for their QI's credentials. Who are they? But they don't necessarily have to be part of the inspection. It's highly recommended. But again, the ultimate responsibility falls on the importer. They would have to sign off on everything that the QI did on the FSVP plan itself, on the written procedures, on the verification activities. Everything still has to be reviewed and signed by the importer, by the top management official. I know it's a little bit confusing. It was a lot for us to learn. We are still learning. It's a really convoluted regulation, but I think eventually with time, people will understand. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Good morning. Sometimes we get calls from people that want to import products. They don't manufacture the products, they're buying it in Mexico. A lot of it's like cookies, candies, and stuff like that. And we advise them that they need to have a food facility registration number. And that has to come from the original manufacturer. How do they go about getting it? I mean, sometimes they can't get it. I've heard situations where they don't have the information and apparently there's a code with FDA that uses it that they are unable to get it. Is that true, or do they really need that food facility registration number?
This is in regards to the Dunns? Did I hear that correctly?
No, when we submit the information to customs, to FDA, you have to provide that number as a affirmations code.
FCE? You're talking about the
Yeah.
facility, I'm sorry, not FCE.
Registration number, yeah.
Oh, FFR.
Let's say somebody wants to bring across Coke, the Coca-Cola, Mexican Coca-Cola. It's required to have that information for the manufacturer of the product. What if they can't get it? What do they do? How do they go about it?
And these are the individuals who are buying it maybe from like
the
they're
general
just
store
or something like that. Yeah, it's a tough situation. I don't believe that the FFR is an affirmation of compliance. I think it's part of the prior notice.
Right.
It's part of the prior notice requirement. I would recommend they try to reach out to somebody to get that information. It's a tough situation. Let me get back to you. Let me talk to prior notice, because that's more of a prior notice requirement, and see if I can get a better answer for you. But they do need it for prior notice, not necessarily for admissibility.
So if they don't have it, they can't do the prior notice, they can't bring it across.
Possibly. I would have to talk to prior notice about that, or our DFDT department.
Okay.
But
All right.
let me clarify with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There's a few things I just want to highlight real quick. Everybody understood that grower is different from consolidator. That's probably one of our biggest things that we see is a distributor submitted instead of the actual grower. We want the actual grower information. FSV versus FSX on affirmations. The only exempt foods are juices, seafood, and alcohol and live cattle. In a nutshell, those are the only exempt foods from FSVP. So that FSX, FSX should only be used for those products. Lately, we've had some brokers that are still using FSX for foods that should be subject to FSVP. So keep that in mind when you're submitting your entries, please. The English translation, we went over that. I know it's something we haven't enforced much because the majority of the team here is bilingual and understands that nopal is cactus bad, but we really should be seeing those invoices, and your descriptions electronically should be in English. I think the green list versus red list was covered. If it's a green list, something where here are the firms on the green list, you want to see your supplier on the green list, on that list. If it's majority of the import alerts are red lists, you don't want to see the product manufacturer on that list, because basically it's saying it cannot be imported. Remember, there are ways, for most instances, there are ways to get off it. The import alert, typically it's 5 shipments, private tested. Now, go ahead.
There's a lot of line growers in Mexico that are growers, and growers are exempt from FDA registration if they don't have a facility. And they send that to a packing house, where the packing house is the one that packs. How would you rather see those kind of situations in the system?
Is the packing house also shipping?
Not necessarily. Well, they come out in maybe the phytosanitary, because that's where USDA does the phytosanitary inspection, but they're not involved in the growing process. There's separate, totally facility that dedicate themselves to packing lines for other companies.
Right. We would want the grower information.
So we would transmit the grower information without an FDA registration. And
Since they're not required to register, right?
if they don't have a facility, they're not.
Right. I believe you can still transmit the grower information. And then if the packing house is a shipper, then they would be the shipper.
Yeah.
For the shipping.
Normally, that's not-
But if they're not, then no. But for FSZP, the packing house would be key for the importer to consider.
So you don't need for us to submit the packing house information at all.
Mm-mm. No. All right. I think that's it.
There's one more question. Someone sent me something on the live chat. It's saying it's not Espanol. Let me see if I can do the translation correct. It's saying there's a DUNS number, identification number, but it's pending because it's not updated with FDA. But FDA, and it does have the DUNS number. It has 2 numbers, but it's not being verified by FDA. Something like that. That's what she says.
So they have a DUNS number, but they're not sure if it's correct.
No, they have a DUNS number in FDA, but it's not. I guess the system's not verifying the number itself.
Yeah, she can reach out on the slide on the A support. What's you have that email address?
It's on slide.
We can
The
get
last
that back
slide.
to you.
Okay.
There's an A support,
The Dunn's
there's an 800 number
requirements.
and an email she can reach out to.
Okay,
She's
There's
having
a-
problems with the Dunn's number.
okay, we'll get back after this. Any more questions? I know, Gemma, I'm just gonna ask for you guys for a couple of more minutes. Today with us, we have, again, we have a wholesale warehouse. Man, it's a long name, sorry. And also we have Jose Peña, the director for our IT department with us. I'm gonna ask for you guys to bear with us, give us a couple of minutes after this. Once FDA is done and off the panel, if there's any more questions, because I know it's noon already, and we've been going back and forth. But please, if you guys have any questions, si tienen alguna pregunta, duda, comentario, today is a moment. Right now is the time for you guys to come and ask. Anything that has to do with Dunn, you guys are the I guess the geeks on this. So please ask. Don't hold back. Don't let fear hold you back. I know
Yeah,
that
we're here to answer your questions. We'll probably hang around for a little while if there's anything you want to come up and ask us, but that concludes our portion of the presentation today. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you, Emilio Escobar. Thank you, team. Once again, round of applause for them. Please, just give us a couple of more minutes. Brian, you can please go ahead. Thanks for Emilio. It's been a while. It's been a while after 2 years for us to be in person again. We have over 50 people connected live, so that's good. In a way, it's good. It's great. But I think it's even better if you guys come in person. That way, we don't have to be doing the translation of making sure if it's the right question that we're asking. Brian, thank you, sir. You want to sit there or you want to stand up?
I'm going to set my clock here so I don't take too long. I know we're running a little over time. So I appreciate everybody being here. Again, my name is Brian Barsness, and I am with a company called Grub Market. And Grub Market is essentially a conglomeration of food companies. We're also a technology company. And so one of the things we've done is we looked at the market for technology and food and determined that it needed some help. And there's a lot of legacy software that is out there, a lot of the legacy technology that's out there. It's big, it's heavy, it's expensive, and this is 2022. So we decided to create our own technology. And as everybody in this industry knows, we tend to talk. Our neighbors found it, they liked it, and we have actually been making it available to the public for a couple of years now. We've grown pretty quickly. How does this apply to you? Well, first and foremost, brokers, you all are a bunch of people who are able to coach and help your customers. And so there's a lot of information that the government requires. We heard some here today, of course. And the question ultimately is, how do you track that all? So if you have questions, please feel free to ask. We will be available afterwards if you want to come and talk to us, because I know today's limited time. But we just wanted to come and be able to show you that there are systems that are out there where all the information that is necessary in order to be compliant with government standards, industry regulations, all that we need to track today's day and age, that it's out there and that it's affordable. So the title is going to be affordably managing food supply in a modern world and a full digital traceability system. So we'll go over how to track that vendor information that's all required. We'll also see how that applies to your inventory. Quickly go about the power of technology. And I know sometimes that's a 4-letter word in the food industry, because technology is great when it works. And when it doesn't, it can be a headache. And we've got things that are if there's a delay, berries become jam after so long. So we don't want that to happen. And speed is key. And then accessibility or web-based, where, again, you don't have to install some kind of heavy software. So first, we're going to have the digital traceability system. The first thing that people need to be able to track with a system is obviously the vendor information, be that the shipper itself when you're importing, or be that the grower. Of course, there are other softwares that are out there. I'm going to speak about obviously how we do it, because that's what I know best. But you do want to make sure that you look for a system that, of course, can keep historical information not just the transactions naturally, but also the contacts that are there within the system, the history of that account, important information such as a Dunn's number. Seems to be a popular theme these days. All can be tracked easily in the right system. There are systems, of course, that are out there too that are generic, where you just track an address, and that's okay too. However, when we're in food, we have additional requirements. So there is no need for you to have a system that tracks a certain amount of your information, and then you have to use everything else in Excel. There are opportunities out there, and of course, the advantage to that is time. We have also the necessary information to make sure that those documents that are all required are also stored and accessible anywhere in the world. So food safety documents, registration documents, all that can hang, and at least in our system, right there in the vendor record, as well as associations with things like growers. Now, once you have all that vendor information that's important, you do need to obviously bring in the product so that it can be sold. So as you're working with your customers, your suppliers, making sure that they have a system where that visibility is easily accessed is huge. And it's not just for the numbers, but also things like we talked about earlier, where you need to standardize and maintain your SKUs. If you have the right system, these issues shouldn't be a problem as we go forward, right? And so there are, again, systems, including ours, that are out there to help your customers make sure that those are standardized. Now, as a little side note, I've been doing this for about 20 years. One of the main mistakes that importers can have is that they let too many people create new SKUs, which then allows for errors and inconsistencies with that standardization. So just as a pro tip, make sure that's the ability to create new SKUs or the ability to modify your products and your SKUs is maybe something that's limited within your organization, or at least in this case, your customers' organizations. And then, of course, that all important one step forward, one step back, making sure that you have, again, easily and accessibly a screen that can tell you your simple lot tracing, both by case, by pallet, by lot. In the top print screen, you'll see here, it's hard to kind of see up here and in live, but on the screen, we have a simple report where we have the original lot. You're going to be able to see all the transactions that are associated to that lot, bringing it out, or as it's been processed. Again, no need to review multiple reports. You can see then, of course, the all-important question as well is, did I make any money? Of course, a lot of people have some gut reactions on that, but the proof is in the pudding, as they say. So here you'll be able to tell quickly with the click of a button where you stand and where your growers potentially stand, because it also, in importing, is important to make sure that traceability is reflective as you liquidate back to your grower, which is popular in the produce industry. To where we're bringing things in on consignment, as well as so you can calculate those liquidations, including, of course, your service charges. So having a system in place to do that. You also can expedite that by putting out import manifests, so that if your supplier is able to get you a manifest, modern systems allow for that importing, which does two things. Of course, there's the speed aspect of having to import it versus manually enter it. Plus, it helps account for error correction based upon the human quotient, right? There's always a volume for human error when you import. At least you can hold your vendor responsible for that error, and it's not you. Now, how do you get all this information in a system? It's easy to find it if you find the right system, of course. When you're on a system that is based out of this century, you can go ahead and it makes it a lot easier to address the human recruiting aspect. A lot of us are having a hard time sometimes finding people to be able to do that. And when the system is something that they look at, that they're that is modern, that you're able to use intuitively, that's important. And I tell you, I got a lot of nieces and nephews. I don't have my own kids yet, but I can hand them a phone or I can have them a tablet at 4 years old and they know how to use it. And I think that that's just reflective of how things are going to continue to go. And if your system is able to adapt to those platforms, you're going to be much easier. You're going to find an easier time recruiting people to come work for you, retaining people as well, because that technology is what we're familiar with today's day and age. It also makes efficiency gains no longer tied to a desk, like my friend over here, Andy. You can get up, you can move. It's a mobile industry. We're in the fields, we're in the farms, we're in the warehouses, and so being able to access your information from anywhere is huge. And just with a simple internet connection, you can buy iPads, you can buy Android tablets, all with cell phone signals, and no longer are we tied to cords. And then the last thing is you're going to make your employees happy and more efficient because they have something that they can relate to, and that they're not focused on having to learn how to use this technology. They already know it because it's intuitive, which makes them more confident in their job performance. And if they can, at the end of the day, studies show that people ultimately just want to be successful in the job that they've been assigned and work hard. And so if they don't have to worry about the technology and they can just go there and perform and do the job that they've been assigned and excel there, that gives them pride in their work usually. Again, these are studies that are out there, and therefore they're more successful in your company. Last thing we've kind of already touched on, again, I'll be quick, having something that's web-based. Now this touches a little bit more into a security issue. So when you have hardware that you have to maintain, it's no longer on the web, you're open to that potentially being hacked, right? And so by being online, you're leaving it to whichever company you choose to go with as your first line of defense, which makes it much more secure if you choose the right company. There's no open terminals into your servers. There's no access points that you're in charge of for securing, or that your customers in this case may be in charge of. And again, this could apply to any software that anybody's using. This just isn't your inventory tracking software for your customers. Even as brokers, you're using your own software. And when you have to secure it yourself, there's a potential for people have malicious intent to come at you. And there was a private industry notification that we put up here from the FBI that specifically said back, I think it was in May, beginning of May or end of April, that said that they had rumors that the food industry was one of the more, hackers had found that the food industry in the United States was one of the more unsecured locations where they can target ransomware attacks. And we've actually seen that in our produce industry partners, or not ours particularly at Grub Market, but a lot of our friends have had ransomware attacks and have had to pay significant sums of money to be able to operate their software. Let's face it, we all don't want to necessarily create our own software and become experts in tech. So we want to just be able to do what we do best, and that's either be a custom broker, or be a produce company, or be a protein company, or food company. Like that's what we want to focus on. That's what we're passionate about. So if you can leave those technology up to the technology experts, in theory, you should be much better secured. The flip side is, though, too, it's a cost issue. You have to maintain that hardware. A server can cost anywhere from a few $1,000s up to $25,000, depending on the side of your organization, or even greater. And you have to maintain that. So that comes at a huge cost, but it also then comes at a maintenance issue. And then the last thing is it's going to have to be replaced. So if you have something that's online, that whole quotient, that whole issue, that whole maintenance goes away. And last, the ability to use your local peripherals. So what that means is your printers are tied already just within the network. There doesn't have to be any kind of fancy networking of your scanners or your printers or your pallet tag printers. It's all just working in-house, which again, makes things just a lot more convenient, a lot more easy, and goes into all the factors that we spoke of today. So I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate the city of Pharr and the Pharr Bridge for allowing us to come out here and meet with you all again. It's been a great time. Andy here is our Texas representative, the vice president of sales for Wholesaleware by Grub Market. Wholesaleware is the actual system. Grub Market is our company. And I'll be happy to take any questions either now or probably later so that as we believe we're out of time, right, Freddie? So, thank you.
Thanks for the watch. Oh, was it for me? I thought it was a present. It was a gift. Guys, don't take off real quick. I need your assistance with this. You guys, all this is, information that's free for you guys. Please take it with you guys. Not done yet. Please register yourself. Print letters, please, not cursive. And letra de molde, no letra pegada, because then I don't understand the I with the one. Then we're getting all these rejects via email. Also, we need a survey from you guys, please. You guys can scan this QR code, or if not, there's a form back there you need to fill out, and you just put in there what is it you guys want for us to, what topics for us to bring. And today with us, we also have Mr. Jose Peña. I'm confusing Pedro Peña with the CVP. Jose, please come over here, Jose. You're the expert in this. Jose is our IT director. Round of applause. He's the one that makes everything happens with his department, also media as well, with all this. So Jose, talk to us. Let us know what's going on with the city of Pharr.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, I'm going to just keep it brief. I know it's kind of already lunchtime, but again, just really wanted to make you all aware the city of Pharr has an active, became an internet service provider this year. So we are actually now delivering fiber to the home. Nobody else is doing it here in the Valley. We'll be the first ones delivering fiber to the home. We actually already started with residential here in South Pharr, but more for you guys. And again, you'll start seeing us a little bit more is because we want to now market to the commercial sector, right? So again, we have a full service offering. This is our website, teamfar.net. You'll kind of see a little bit of what we have, which is more tailored to the residential customer. But again, to sign up and reserve a spot to be on our list, it's just following up on the web link there, fill out the information. But again, we're interested in the commercial sector. We know obviously commercial sector internet services are a little more expensive. And again, our cost is a lot more affordable. But again, this will be a true fiber to your business. Again, we have our rates. If you click on the second link, the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, which they're about to do, you can kind of see some of our rates. And then we'll scroll down a little bit on the commercial offerings. So again, here it kind of talks about everything, our 2 residential plans. Again, if you do live in Pharr, please sign up, $25. You have a student at home, goes to school, free school lunch. We're already approved with affordable connectivity program by the government. So it's basically free. Again, here's a small business plan for $100. And then right below it are our enterprise plans. Again, so we have 3 different enterprise plan options based on the need. Obviously, we might see some businesses, larger warehouses that might need more connectivity. And again, those can be discussed and negotiated with us. But again, just want to make you all aware that, again, the city of Pharr now is an internet service provider. And again, we're going to provide 100% connectivity to every single property within the city of Pharr. And we're already connecting here in South Pharr. Any questions or go ahead? Sure. Well, yes, we'd love to have you build in Pharr and obviously deliver you direct services. But again, we've published up to our gig service. For residential, we only have 2 plans, 500 megabits up and down. Not, we don't shortchange you there like everybody else on your uploads. But again, 500 megabits up and down, $25. Gigabit to your house, $50. And the same concept applies to the commercial plans. Again, they could be small suites like a restaurant, office spaces that are typical home type of setups. But then obviously there's larger facilities with their own networking in place. We can go up to a gigabit, but if a customer requires 2, 5, 10 gig, we have capacity for that because again, We're all 100% underground fiber infrastructure. We see a lot of work being done out here. Our project is moving up north, and we wanted to start in South Pharr because, again, our big industrial segment is here. Go ahead. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, that is in the plan. Our strategic plan just got published a couple of months ago. Our goal is to go over to 4 additional cities within the next 3 years. But right now, we're still under construction. City of Pharr, like I said, our construction crews are already in Central Pharr, and our home installations are already happening here, South Pharr. But the goal is to expand our network outside of our city limits, as well as make partnerships with other cities. But again, this is kind of the next thing that going on. You saw Harlingen recently did a study, Brownsville as well, but again, we're kind of the first to market with this. This is the largest municipal owned and operated network in the state. So we are working with a large of industrial suppliers, but yes, the goal eventually is to work with other cities as well, directly, and school districts. But yes. ¿Alguna otra pregunta o alguien que quiera que le explique en español? Si no, para que entiendan mejor, o si tienen una pregunta, aquí voy a estar también. All right, well, thank you all.
Well, thank you guys. Please don't forget the surveys. Please, City of Pharr is always going beyond the expectations. So you guys have a business in Pharr, hey, it's true, we'll soon be getting, free at some point, and Wi-Fi service, internet service. You like that, right? If you own a business, why? Why not? Everybody wants to save money. Today's the time to make that happen. Okay, so una vez más, ahí el survey, la encuesta esa, por favor, llénela, el QR code. Now we're going to do a little raffle. You had a ticket, you put it in there. Ahorita aquí la señora Clio Salinas, la señora Cintia Telles van a hacer una pequeña rifa. Once again, thanks to Wholesale, they're out of California, and they're a system that you need within your infrastructure, your warehouse, your business. No, that's if you're gonna provide a Vegas for 2, so I don't know. You see? So open your account and go ahead. So si puede hacer la rifa, por favor. Yes, please. There, here, wherever you want to have that. Once again, FDA, thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Una vez más, gracias a cada uno de ustedes. I have a quick question for FDA. Tengo una pregunta para FDA. ¿Dónde está Emilio? Emilio's right here. Emilio, el señor, no quiero decir nombre, pero el señor García tiene una pregunta. Y quiero que lo conozca. El señor Salvador García está, it's right there behind you. No hay nada por qué estar empenados, ¿verdad? Estar en vergüenza, pero ¿para cuándo es que todos van a estar en cumplimiento con el FSBP? So, desde el 2017 tenían que estar en cumplimiento todos. So, quiere decir que aún no todos están en cumplimiento. So when is going to be the cutoff time? You're not in compliance with FSBP, so what's going to happen? So, si no estás en cumplimiento con el FSBP, si te hacen la auditoría o la inspección de hoy en adelante, entonces es ahí donde puede definir alguna sanción. Is that correct? Oh, so much, you got a job opening? Well, thank you guys once again. Thank you all the sponsors. Thank you eProduce. Thank you Wholesale Wear. Yes, ma'am. Okay, yeah, we're fine. We're here. They have something for you guys. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. No, but we'll be doing this. Ms. Diaz, please. Drum roll, someone. I don't know. Let's do the drum roll there. You guys can stretch, relax, take a deep breath. Has no cost. Mr. Crispin, can you give me a minute after this? After this? So once again, thanks. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Andy. There's a lot of Andys here in the valley too. Andres, Andrew, Andy. It's like a lot of Pedro's, Juan, you know. Eddie, yes. So what are we raffling today? Who's Teresa Escalon? Teresa Escalon. Is she gone? You need to be present to win. And where's she at? Oh, she left. Okay, next. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Right, Brian? You need to be present to win. Oh, you see what I mean when you ask for you guys to do it in print? So I think it says Levy or Leslie. J2, J2. Okay. A number, yeah, the number. And that's the winner. We were giving you a discount ticket for Wholesale Warehouse for Mr. Garcia's. Right here, ma'am. Yeah, that's yours, yes. Yes. Then the next one is Armando Flores. Oh, he left, right? Oh, no, he's here. Right here. Is that? Yes. You want this or you want a backpack? It's a cooler. It's cool. Show it off. It has a Pharr bridge, you know, everything. You guys need to put the drinks. Then we have Julia. Okay, that's Julia Walsh. Oh, that's you. Okay, yeah, it's fair enough. You know, you take a Jetty. She's a photographer. She's a paparazzi. How are you gonna take the picture? You know, selfie. Carmen Calzada. Oh, Philip. Ma'am, you want the bag or you want this one? This one you could go to the island with it. You know, you can put drinks in it. You can do. Oh, okay. Yes, she was not convinced. Thank you, ma'am. Alguien más? One more. Oh, Arturo Flores. I'm sorry. Yes, you guys can come in, you know. No. Oh, yes, we need the tickets. Or no, I'm just kidding. You don't need it. You know, guys, as of for today, you know, once again, thank you for joining us. Thanks on behalf of the City of Pharr, the Pharr International Bridge, the mayor, Dr. Ambrosio Hernandez. We're going to ask Herman to come up here real quickly, please. Our bridge director, Luis Bazan, and our director of operations, Fred Broen. Once again, thanks. You guys need something, projects, updated projects are coming up with the City of Pharr, the Pharr Bridge. Stay tuned, you know, please. Once again, thanks. Hold on.
Hi, my name's Herman Trevino. I'm original from here, from Pharr. You might know my mother, Rosa Trevino, JP, for 24 years. Yeah. Can you hear me? Is that better? Anyways, so yeah, I work with wholesale web market. I'm their senior workflow architect. I design software also. I designed some of the modules for repacking and also for liquidations. Okay, and I also own eProduce. Okay, eProduce.com. I'm an accountant, software developer. I've been doing produce accounting for the last 28 years. I was in Mexico as a CFO for an avocado group, so I understand a lot of the liquidation stuff. I do cold storage, by the way, software too. So if you have any questions, we're back there here. Take some of my cards. Brian is I've been working with Brian now for close to a year with wholesaleware together. So got any questions, just come up and ask me. Glad to entertain you. Thank you all.
Thank you guys once again. Stay tuned. Mr. Crispin, 1 minute, please. Guys, may God bless you. You guys see you next time, okay? You guys have a safe trip. Till next time.